And people, the first time, there was a lot of outrage. There wasn't a lot of outrage this time. I think there's a lot of Democrats who are very quietly accepting the fact that their party has lost its way. And maybe you find Trump crass, maybe even repugnant, but he's kind of a bottom line economy, border, crime guy. And I think that's really appealing to people, especially when they're in crisis, COVID, wildfires. People want answers, and they're not really interested in being, they're not really interested in bureaucratic answers and safe answers. They want definitive, hard, uncomfortable questions and answers. And I think that's what Trump provides.
On his podcast, which has over 844,000 subscribers, sports media man Colin Cowherd weighed in on the LA wildfires and Trump retaking office.
And I was really taken back by when he won the election. There was a resignation by the left. You know what? We ran a poor campaign, and he connects with more people. And I think listening and watching what's being said during this, it is. I sit here and I look at America, and I think you and I both, we're very lucky people. But there's also a reason in this country that football is so damn popular. Players play hurt. They play in crappy weather. There's no load management. They don't complain about games. They bust their. They treat the fans with respect. I think there was a in that COVID space, there was a time in this country where people felt like they had to walk on eggshells on social media, at parties, in public, with what they said. And I think people in this country are over it.
There's a lot to get to. Let's continue with Cowherd, then react. And hey, just a quick break in the action. You should go subscribe to my new show, The Rick Strom Show. I'm going to be interviewing people from sports, music, journalists, authors, sports doctors. It's going to be fantastic. Please go subscribe. Thank you.
I think there's a feeling, that in Los Angeles, in these areas, Beverly Hills, Palisades, Manhattan Beach, where I used to live next to a fireman and a school teacher, and they bought their homes 35 years ago. And I also think there is a feeling that Los Angeles is all crazy left. Beverly Hills voted for Trump, I believe, twice. And the truth is, San Francisco and Los Angeles proper are left-leaning. But I think people don't realize outside of the state, when you get out of LA and San Francisco proper, it's very moderate in this state. It's just, it can get Looney Tunes left up in San Francisco and certainly in like Hollywood. But like I have a pretty wide group of friends. Nobody's far left. Nobody's far right. But there's a lot more centrists in this area. And the outrage at the politicians.
Okay, he's all over the place here. One more from Colin.
Remember, Palisades is one of the bluest areas of LA. It is agents, it is actors, it is celebrities. It's not Hollywood, West Hollywood blue, but it's blue. And they are pissed. And I don't know if it will create a seismic shift in the political landscape.
Why do you think WeHo is so blue, man? I mean, come on, let's use our brain and logic here.
But I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if this Karen Bass stuff, the mayor, I wouldn't be shocked if this.
I don't see how.
I think this thing may unravel quickly. Listen,
I don't see her having any shot. And look at Caruso. Didn't he save the area?
Rick Caruso is a legendary builder in Southern California. He's one of the richest people in Southern California. He's a friend. He's one of the nicest, most gracious, genuine people I've ever met.
There is so much to unpack here, but one thing that I've consistently seen, before we get to what Colin said, is people reposting on any social media platform, whether for good or bad, the Kardashians calling out Mayor Karen Bass, and Jamil Hill had a pretty good response to that.
Google Khloe Kardashian and the Kardashians and water usage. You'll find some very interesting information because their family alone the amount of water they use is so excessive that it was a news story, a big news story here in Los Angeles. So I find that her comments to call out Mayor Bass, and especially in a moment where people are just trying to survive.
So, of course, I looked this up, and the Kardashians do use quite a bit of water. So, according to the LA Times, Khloe exceeded the city's water usage guidelines and allegedly used 101,000 gallons above the legal limit during 1 month in 2022.
Oh, my God, during 1 month?
And then Kim Kardashian's home in Hidden Hills exceeded their usage limit in June of 2022 by 232,000 gallons. So they were fined, but the criticism is that they just use whatever water they want. They don't care about the drought or anything like that.
Yeah.
Because they can just afford the fine.
Right.
Because the fine is like $25 for watering at the wrong time, up to about $10,000. So they're probably like, all right, well, I want my grass to be pretty and I want my pool to be full. So just whatever the bill is, I'll just pay it.
If the Kardashians would just stop showering, the fire hydrants would be full,
Right.
the reservoir would have been filled, and the fires would have been put out. It's outrageous.
It
they,
really is.
They just needed to stop showering, and this whole problem could have been solved.
Now, let me also be clear about something, okay? It was not long ago when Colin Cowherd said, and I quote, "I have to talk about Donald Trump. You know, I've said this about Trump before. He's trying to sell me an America that doesn't exist." This is during the election. "I've been kind of poor, middle class. Now I'm better off than most. He's trying to sell me this America stinks, and I just don't see it. I'm constantly being sold in America by Donald Trump that crime rates are skyrocketing. No, they're not." He'd go on to say, "It would be like watching your football team and they play well and win, and your neighbor says, they're playing terribly, keep losing. No, they're winning and they're playing terribly, like you can't keep selling me on how bad the country I live in because it's not bad for me or my friends. If you don't have policies that I connect with and you're always grouching and fetching about the other side, I'm not interested in you." Trump once, this is Colin Cowherd saying this. Trump once tried to sell vodka and acknowledges he never drank. He's never really drank alcohol, but he tried to sell vodka. So I've thought of, for a long time, he's just kind of a con artist. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? Colin Cowherd again. "Let's say I got busted for some really bad crime in court, a drug crime, and my wife did too in a separate case, and then so did one of my kids, my manager, my agent, my attorney. It would be reasonable to conclude that I'm shady and involved in a business that's not terribly legal. Well, Donald Trump is a felon. His campaign chairman was a felon. Deputy campaign manager, personal lawyer, chief strategist, national security advisor, trade advisor, foreign policy advisor, his campaign's fixer, and his company's CFO. They're all felons. Judged by the company you keep, it's a cabal of convicts." I cannot believe this is the same person saying this stuff. He would conclude, "If everybody in your social circle is a felon, I don't think it's rigged. I think the world's against you. I don't think the world's against you. And to get people to agree on anything, 34 counts, over 34, that's a batting slump even the Mets could be impressed with. 0 for 34. You know, it's just when you're constantly trying to sell me on an America that I don't see. Trump's entire game plan is the country's in a free fall. Maybe in the Trump-centric neighborhoods it is. And yet somehow the same Colin Cowherd is going on his show glazing this guy and saying that this is the person who needs to be in charge now. It is shocking. And I know that we have covered Colin's takes and how bad they have been because he is a serial flip-flopper. I think this is microcosmic of the commentator he is. Sometimes he's right. Sometimes he is terribly wrong. Terribly wrong. And let me also say, I moved out of LA for the two sole reasons. Number one, we were bringing a child into this world. And number two, we needed the family support. And I guess a third is LA is expensive to live in, but man, did we love it. And I think if we chose not to have a kid, we'd probably still be there. But with all that being said, we were able to vote, at least I can speak for myself, in the last mayoral election. And when I saw how the press went all in on 2 candidates. And really, even though I despise him, Councilman Kevin De Leon, tried doing his thing by showing up at different ballparks and concerts. I voted for Gina Viola. Proudly. And she got against a machine-backing candidate, and Kevin De Leon got 6,000 fewer votes. 4,000 to 6,000, to my understanding. I don't think Rick Caruso would do any better. Because, like Karen Bass, in that Venn diagram of Bass and Caruso, you know what they want to do? They want to give more money to the cops. But in turn, what Colin Cowherd does not mention, and what a lot of other people do not mention who are in corporate media that want to wade into these waters, is this. They will go after a political candidate, which is fair. I am no Karen Bass stan. I did not vote for her. When it came down to those two, between those two, I voted for Karen Bass reluctantly. Because as we know, a liberal is pretty close to a Republican in many aspects. But what I see is those in corporate media who want to weigh in on this subject, they don't call out ExxonMobil. They don't call out Chevron. They don't call out the fossil fuel companies that are driving our planet and subsequently our existence into the ground. They do this, and they say Rick Caruso would have been the right guy. The same Rick Caruso, if he's a builder and this great human being, hired a private firm to protect his properties. Wow, what a man of the people he is. And yet, simultaneously, the money that they give to the cops, they're going to be getting countless amounts of our taxpayer money in overtime just to be lined up on the PCH. There's so many angles to this, and I truly believe they hit very, very few, including the bigger point, which is how the top 1% and those companies are driving climate change, with ExxonMobil even saying so many decades ago. So you can call out Karen Bass, you can glaze Rick Caruso. At the end of the day, they need to put things in perspective for their audience, because what they're doing is a disservice, to say the least. If you can and are willing, please become a paid member here at TYT Sports. And or go to tyt.com/join. In addition, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Appreciate it. Have a great day.